Welcome back to another edition of Fly Tying for Beginners with Jim Misiura. I've decided to kind of reformat my beginner fly tying, and we're going to go a little more in depth in everything, and I'm going to start as if I was teaching a fresh student that's never tied a fly before. And one of the very first flies, or probably the very first fly I teach guys to tie, is a black ghost. And the reason I do this is because it shows you a lot of the basic steps in fly tying, but it also is a productive fly. Pretty durable, and it's a productive fly. So we're going to need a streamer hook. This is Lively Legs number 472, a size 6. Size 6 is a good size for a streamer or a minnow. This is a 3 extra long hook, and it is 1 extra strong. I like the Lively Leg hooks. They're very sharp. They work nice. Then the next thing, we're going to need some lead weight. We're not going to put any beads or cones on here. We're going to use, I'm going to use 20 thousandths lead-free wire. For the body, we're going to use just black floss. And for a rib on the body, we're going to use gold and silver tinsel. And this is going to be a number 14 for this size hook. For our tail, we're going to use golden pheasant crest, and this is actually something that's pretty common in most fly tying kits if you did happen to buy a fly tying kit. The crest is the yellow feathers, you can see there, and the other part is the golden pheasant tippets, and this is most popular on the Royal Coachman fly, the tippets, but we're going to use the crest. And then the throat, I'm going to use yellow Hackle. It doesn't have to be this bright yellow. This is almost a neon, but it's what I have available to me right at the moment. You can actually use, if you hunt pheasants, this is from a ringneck pheasant, and there's actually yellow tips in there on the pheasant. But and then lastly, we're going to use a pair of white Hackle feathers, and these are strung Hackle, what they call strung Hackle, strung saddle Hackle. And these aren't high quality feathers. They are, basically they're the lowest quality feathers that they sell in Hackle. And strung Hackle, the reason you're going to buy these is for streamers and for woolly buggers. And here is a strung Hackle that I bought. It's actually probably about 12 inches long, you can see. And basically what they mean by strung is they put all the feathers together and then they sew them together. But you can see on here, you can see these feathers aren't good enough for, you're not going to use them for your common dry flies. You might use them for, like I said, woolly buggers or streamers, or maybe a collar on a streamer. But when you're selecting a feather for a streamer, you have to decide if you want that streamer to be a nice fat one, or you want it to be a skinny one like that. You don't want them real skinny, as for instance something like this Now you don't want that, that's way too skinny. This is a dry fly hackle. Plus you don't want to waste your dry fly hackles on a streamer. So we're going to get started as soon as I put this back in the bag. And we're going to get started. We have our hook in the vise. I don't have the barb crimped down. Let me take that out. There's a couple ways you could do this. You could put this in your vise like this and tighten it down. I find that a little bit difficult. You want to take something like needle nose pliers, or these are specialty pliers that I bought for rod building, but they're actually round. You can see they're round, but in the bottom got a nice flat spot, so I usually put them in there and I crimp it down like that. And you don't have to go squeezing hard. It's only a little barb for you to crimp down. And the reason we crimp the barbs down is, especially when you're a catch and release fisherman, it's not going to create that big of a hole in the fish's mouth or make it difficult to get it out. I'm sure you've all had the experience of trying to get something like a barbed treble hook out of a fish's mouth, or even a barbed bait holder hook out of a fish's mouth. So they come out really easy. Now we're going to take our 20 thousandths lead-free wire, and I just usually grab a little bit up here just to hold. And we're just going to wrap it. We're going to start about where the tip of the point of the hook is. And I lost count, but you're going to put on the amount of weight that you want to get that fly to the correct depth that you're going to be fishing it. So usually, I mean, on a streamer, I usually get about 20 or so. And you just kind of wiggle it. The one thing that I dislike, not bad, necessarily bad, the one thing I dislike about lead-free wire is it's a lot harder to break than actual lead. But the benefits to wildlife, especially wildlife like loon, duck, loon, if it is a duck, I believe so, they'll go ahead and they eat fish. And if you lose this streamer and they see that streamer, they might eat it, and then they'll get lead poisoning. So now you can either try to wrap that down, or you can take a pair of nail clippers and just trim that. And then with your back of your thumbnail, you can just fold it right in. The nail clippers don't get damaged by it. I cut wire with them even. Now, we're going to use black thread. And you don't need anything, especially when you're first starting. You want to have a heavier thread. I have 8/0 here, but you want to use, you probably want to use 6/0 thread, especially when you're really first starting, so you get the amount of tension that you're going to put down. Now we're going to start the thread behind the eye. You just lay it over, and as you start wrapping, you wrap it over itself. And then you can trim that off, but if you get it tight on your finger here, you can just break it off, especially with the lighter threads. Heavier threads, or if you're using something like 210 denier, you have to cut it. Now I have the lead positioned where I want it. I'm going to hold the lead and wrap over it. And the reason I'm holding the lead is so if you try getting up on the top there, you could push it all the way to the back. Now we're going to put several wraps right in back in order to stop that, keep that from moving. And we'll go back and forth maybe 1 or 2 more times just to help secure that lead. Now we're going to start with the tail, so we're going to put a base of thread down. And it's not getting touching turns isn't all that important. It is, and you should strive for touching turns, but if you have little gaps, not a big deal. And we're going to stop this just about, maybe I'm going to stop at about halfway to the barb. If you went to the barb, you would be a little bit too far, I believe. See, because we're almost going down the back of the hook already. We'll just bring that and stop that just at the end of the straight. Let me zoom that in just a little bit. Now, so for the first thing we're going to put on is, like I said, our tail, and that is going to be the golden pheasant crest. And just like with any hackle, because basically this is just hackle, if you look at that side, you could actually see part of the skull from this particular pheasant. But just like any hackle, the smaller ones are going to be down the bottom. And you can grab, depending on the quality of your feather, grab one or two feathers, and I have one here. And you can see just from being in the bag, it's curved all different ways. But if you really want to straighten these out properly, what you would do is wet them and put them on a round surface like a cup or something like that, and then they'll dry and they'll be they'll have that nice curve. But I got a nice curve right there, so that's what I'm going to tie in. First we're going to measure it, and I want this about half the length of the hook shank. So where my fingers are is where I want the thread to be. So I'll move it over. I'm going to hold this, take a loose loop, pull it straight down. By loose loop I mean bring it up, put it between your fingers. Now it's not going anywhere. We'll pull it straight down. And then once you get a couple, two or three of them in there, you can go ahead and tighten it or secure the remainder of the hook. Now when I get to this point, you really have two options. You could go ahead and cut that off, or you can actually leave that longer, and I'm cut it off just the length of the lead. And the reason for that is, what I'm going to do is I'm going to close some of the little gaps in the lead, and that way your thread isn't going to pull into those little gaps, or any of your material isn't going to pull into those little gaps. Now we're going to go ahead and put our rib on, and like I said, we're going to use the number 14 gold and silver tinsel, and we're going to take maybe 2 wraps, unwrap it like twice, because most of them have a slit in the side there so you can secure it. We'll just push that back in, and now, when I cut this off, it's not going to unravel on me. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that, and now because it is gold and silver, I want to see the silver side. So when I tie this on, I'm going to tie the silver side to the shank, or another way to put it is I want to see the gold side. So I'm looking at the gold side. The silver side is to the shank. I'm going to go ahead and secure that. And don't worry, you don't have to get every little speck of it tied down. 2 or 3, 4 wraps is usually enough, but just go ahead and secure it, and then bring your thread up to just in front of the lead. Now we're going to tie the body in, but the body is going to be black floss, and we're going to tie it in from the front. We're going to tie it in at the front, we're going to go back, and then we're going to go forward again. So you get your floss, and usually you'll get this, it's either going to be a 2-strand or a 4-strand, and this is actually a 4-strand. And I'm going to take about 4 wraps off the spool, and that's going to give me about 12 inches. It's really one thing amazes me is like that little space, that's an inch, and we're going to use 12 inches of floss to cover it. Now I have the 4 strands, so what I'm going to do is you can have a wet sponge with you, but I just go ahead and run this over my tongue. And now we have it under control, and we have all 4 strands together. So I'm going to tie this in, and the tag end is going to face forward. And now I'm going to wrap the floss back, and then we're going to wrap it forward again. Now you could go ahead and do it by hand if you don't have a rotating vise. I like to rotate the vise, and if you do have a rotating vise, it's a good idea to use your, let me just put a little bit of weight tension on this so it doesn't unravel. Go ahead and use your bobbin cradle. You can see this, it's an L shape. It comes down and goes over to the shaft itself, the vise shaft. So we're going to just go ahead and put 1 half hitch in there. If you don't do it by your fingers, you could go ahead and take your half hitch tool, put that over, and that's basically tying just one simple knot. You get that thread level with your hook. Now I can go ahead and take this plier off, get a little bit more moisture on there. Now I can go ahead and continue wrapping the body, and I'm going to come right down to the tail, and then I'm going to go forward. And you'll see as you're doing this, if you lay it, if it's flat, it's going to make nice. If it's a little bit tight, it's going to kind of be like a rope wrapped around there. You kind of want it flat. But you also have to be careful because it can easily spread too wide. And that's another thing that happens when you use it and it's dry. It will spread out on you. And we're going to go ahead and bring this right back up to the thread. And the reason for that bobbin cradle, I'm sorry I didn't say, is so that when you rotate your vise, your bobbin doesn't come up to, you don't get extra wraps on it. Let me just move this out of the way. I bring that up there, and we're going to tie that off. I had to reel in a little bit of my thread. We're going to give that 3 or 4 wraps. That's all you need. You can go ahead and put that back. You can pull it back and wrap a couple of wraps on top of it. And then we're going to take our scissors and cut that nice and close. Now, when I first started tying, one of the difficult things that I found was when I wrapped my tinsel, sometimes it would unravel on me, or it was on there very loose. There's a couple ways that you can avoid that. And first way is to wrap it tight. You're holding this tight, and you wrap it tight. Another way, just to ensure, is take a little bit of your head cement, and especially when you're on the black, you can put some head cement on there. That was way too much. You're going to have to touch it off there. And basically, it will glue itself to the fly. Now, I'm going to hold this. I'm holding it tight, and I'm wrapping And when I get up to the thread, then I can go ahead and tie that off. Always keep tension on your thread, on your bobbin thread, because if you don't, it's going to unravel on you. And you can, again, you can fold that back and give that a couple of wraps on the layover. And now I have probably enough for another fly, but it'll be close. Got a little bit of fuzz there. There we go. Now for the next step, I'm going to go ahead and turn my fly upside down. And I'm going to take one of the yellow hackle feathers. And these are also strong saddle. Like I said, these are not the best for, they're not good for dry flies. So I'm going to just grab one and I'm going to pull that off. You can see even got some bad ones there. Go ahead and remove that. Remove that fluff off the whole thing. Now I'm going to take a portion of this, and we're going to tie this in right on the bottom. See, you want a decent amount. You don't want too few. You want about, I'm going to take about a ½ inch off my stem. And what we're going to do is we're going to stand them up and we're going to line the tips this way. Now I have the tips aligned. Now with the hand that I'm going to hold them in place with, I'm going to remove them. That will be my left hand. And just pull them off. And I'm going to size them up. You don't want them any longer than a half. So I'm going to go ahead and put them back in my left hand, and I can see that these are long. So I'm going to go ahead and just cut off part of that tie-in. Take our loose loop, straight down, loose loop, straight down. Now you can let go of your left hand. And here we have we got to keep pressure on the thread though. Now we're going to go ahead and secure it the rest of the way. This throat could be a little bit closer, but no further back than where I have it right now. Now for the wing, I'm going to go ahead and take my pair of white saddle hackle, and you can see this one is twisted right there, but we're going to tie this on, and that's going to be about the length we want it. We want it about 1.5 times the length of the shaft. I'm actually going to, this is a really soft feather, I'm going to stroke them down, and I'm going to measure once again. Let me back that out there for you. Once again, I take and that's going to be about the length that we want. So I'm going to take this one, and I'm going to take the second one, I'm going to match it. So I'm just going to measure the length of the first and we put them down. And we have a matched pair. Now I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to trim this off. And I'm going to trim off probably down to a quarter of an inch or less. And then we're going to take our scissors and we're going to trim the feather down. This is called giving it a crew cut. That's what I call it. And the reason for this is we're going to give our thread something to hold on to, as opposed to a bare stem that can easily become slippery and pull out. We're going to take our matched pairs and we're going to put the back sides together, or the concave sides together. There I have them. They're nice and tight. Now I'm going to place them. Get rid of that one stray. There we go. Now I'm going to place them right on top, and we're going to tie this in. Let me start again. Get a loose loop, pull it straight down. Now we're going to clean up the head as we're securing it. Now I'm going to take my whip finish. Here's your whip finish tool, and you can do this two ways. You can go ahead and use your fingers, place two fingers on it, bring it down, bring the thread around, and now we'll do that on the bottom. Now you can see that we have an X. Then when you get that X, you have to twist your fingers back around, and you still have that X. Slide it up once, twice, and then you rotate your fingers each time, and then you can pull that tight. Now with your whip finisher is the same thing as using your fingers. Take the hook, put it on, take it around the little camel hump, and there is your X. Now you can move that X right up into position, and then just rotate your whip finish. When you want to take it out, we're going to go ahead and push it forward, take that camel hump off. Now I'm going to pull it with the hook still on it. When you get the hook up to the hook shank, then you can remove it. Then we're going to trim that off, and I use this. This is a cuticle trimmer, and I call it my poke and snip. And we'll just go ahead and poke and snip. Now we'll take our head cement, and you can get head cement from the fly shops or such, but you can just get Sally Hansen's Hard as Nails. Many fly tires use the Sally Hansen's Hard as Nails. It's just clear nail polish. Clean your brush off pretty good, and then you can go ahead and coat the head. And here we have a black ghost. Hope that you learned something from this video. Hope that you would subscribe to my channel. Please refer me to your friends. Leave comments, questions, suggestions. Please visit my sponsors and let them know that I sent you. If you'd like to purchase any of these flies that I make, go to etsy.com/shop/theflymanjim. And if you don't see it there, I will just send me a message and we'll figure out what you want and we'll get it taken care of. And most of all, thank you very much for watching my videos.